Hey everybody, it's your boy Captain Hunter coming at you again. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Want to talk today a little bit about what's going on with criminal justice reform and why we can't make any kind of changes. I do have my window open, so if you hear cars driving by, please forgive me. Why we can't seem to make any real lasting changes. We are so politically um, different in this country, so politically polarized in this country, left, right, and then of course we have a few. Actually, the majority of the people are actually in the center, but um, these political parties are really killing us as far as getting anything substantial done. So, if you believe in some type of criminal justice reform, and I say criminal justice because this is not just a police problem. I've talked about this before. If you have not picked up a copy of my book, please make sure that you do so. I'll try to put a picture up on the screen here. I'm just recording this live here. It's still available on lulu.com, lulu.com. If you type in police reform, I believe it's the first or second book that pops up. So please make sure you check that out. I am about to start doing a second edition to it to catch up on things that have to do with more with police reform and more expanded ideas in the history of police reform and things along those lines. So keep an eye out for that. So I wanted to. So I was reading over this whole presidential indictment of Donald Trump. You know, he got arrested, and his mugshot was on, going around the internet, making its ways around the news and everything like that. So I want to understand, you know, the four different entities that caused for his indictment. And of course, we go to Georgia, where he was alleged to have been uh, involved in trying to conjure up votes, asking them, I think, the governor there to fabricate votes and quote unquote find votes so he can stay in office and all that. Interesting stuff. But when I came across it, of course, in wake of the district attorney there, in wake of this particular lady right here, County District Attorney Fannie Willis, she's the one who's prosecuting him. And now, because of her actions in taking the prosecution, doing what she had to do, they are now prosecuting her. So this became a bigger story that's going to relate to us in the police and criminal justice world. Remember when I talked about Ahmaud Arbery, and the problem with that particular case, Ahmaud Arbery being the young man in Georgia who was running down the street or going for a morning jog or something along those lines, was accused of looking in houses, and then actually three good old boys posseed up, grabbed their guns, and tried to confront him for allegedly stealing or trespassing or whatever in the houses that were under construction in their particular neighborhood. And then when Ahmaud Arbery did not acquiesce and just did not, you know, stop or go along to go along with their program, was then killed by him. And one of the problems in that case was the district attorneys themselves, who were reluctant to prosecute and had to go up to three, if I'm not mistaken, three different levels. The initial prosecutor um, refused to prosecute, got kicked up to a second, higher prosecutor. I believe he refused to do it and had to go all the way up to the Georgia state, you know, whoever the top dog prosecutor's office is, the state's attorney or whatever, in order to get the indictment done on the three good old boys. And the prosecutor, I'm kind of going off the top of my head here, so please forgive me. The prosecutor, she ended up, I believe, losing her job. She got arrested. Let me see. Let's check that out. Yeah. Georgia, former DA over Ahmaud Arbery case. I spelled all that wrong. I cannot type. She was booked on charges. She got arrested. Let's see what the case at the end of this case was. Former prosecutor charged with hindering Ahmaud Arbery's death set for arraignment. Okay, this was still set for arraignment. Jackie Johnson charged with hindering police investigation into the killing of Ahmaud Arbery has been ordered to appear for her first court appearance. I don't know. You know, this is last year, so I don't. This is the latest that popped up, here. So I'm not. This is not a. We're not talking about that. So I don't know if her case was settled yet or what's up with that. But you know, but yeah, she did a bad thing there. So this is the thing that goes along with the criminal justice reform and why we can't get it. So this particular case. So we had a prosecutor in that case doing essentially what I would call the will of the right. And I don't like to always talk about Republicans, Democrats, but this makes it more clear as to what's going on here. So as this says, let's read over this article. Georgia. This name of this comes from The Intercept. The name of the article is Georgia GOP gears up to remove Atlanta prosecutor who indicted Donald Trump. They don't like the way things are going, so they're going to try to oust her from office. A little over a week after a prosecutor in Georgia indicted former President Donald Trump for trying to overturn the results of the state's 2020 presidential election, Republicans said that they will use a new law to remove her from office. In May, Republican Governor Brian Kemp signed the law that created a commission of political appointees, I ought to tell you something, with the power to remove and discipline elected prosecutors over decisions or policies not to prosecute certain offenses. The law seeks to limit or restrict reform-minded prosecutors in the Fulton County, which includes Atlanta, though District Attorney Fani Willis is not even known as much of a reformer. Instead, Republican lawmakers set their eyes on Willis for another reason: prosecuting the wrong person. So essentially, these people, and Brian Kemp signed it, to remove people from power if they don't follow if they're being too soft on crime. That's essentially what this was, and it's a political appointees. And that's going to be problematic. This is the problem. This is the problem why law enforcement drags its feet, can't get things done. So you got the will. Now the prosecutors down here are elected, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I'm jumping ahead here, but they are elected, right? So the voters go to vote for mayors, governors, their state representatives, state senators, and then they also vote for whoever they want to be their elected prosecutors. But these people, at the will of Brian Kemp, is going to go over their heads or attempt to go over their heads and defeat the will of the people and remove these people who they think are being too soft on crime. Never forget the fact that they've actually voted for them. And this is what they want in their particular communities, right? If they don't like it, you got 4 years and get that person out of office the way it should be done. But no, Brian Kemp, and I guarantee you he would not have been in favor of prosecuting or removing Donald Trump from office, even though he was impeached twice. I guarantee you that, right? So it's all about who you like, who you know, who's in your party affiliations, etc. In a Facebook post Monday, State Senator Clint Dixon, a Republican, said Willis was indicting Trump because of an unabashed goal to become the sort of leftist celebrity and should be investigated for using the justice system against her political opponents. Now, this woman, Fani Willis, is a prosecutor. Her political opponents in this case is Donald Trump? Crazy. The Public Rights Project, a nonprofit that worked on a lawsuit by a bipartisan group of Georgia prosecutors against the bill earlier this month, filed a preliminary injunction against the commission on Thursday, seeking to stop it from initiating any disciplinary or removal proceedings against the prosecutor while litigation over the law is pending. Right, so they're talking about this. Right, what is the constitutionality of this law signed by Brian Kemp? The original reasoning for the commission, remember, not just a commission, right? These are political appointees, right? Was to go after DAs who supposedly weren't prosecuting enough, said Jill Habig, executive director of the Public Rights Project. It's not only about not prosecuting enough, it's also about prosecuting too much if the defendant is the wrong one from the perspective of the partisan officials who are creating and staffing this commission. Habig, who said her group disagrees with the characterization of prosecutors targeting by the bill, said the injunction to block Willis's ouster was necessary to reserve the will of voters who elected prosecutors across the state. The commission did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The new Georgia law is one of close to 40 similar measures introduced in a third of states since 2017 that target prosecutors implementing popular criminal justice reform. I don't know if I got it. Let's see. I don't know if I'll be able to read the next article. The recent efforts to subvert the authority of elected prosecutors have been largely driven by white Republican lawmakers in gerrymandered states against Black Democrats and the liberal islands of cities, Habig said. Over a third of the states have considered this legislation to retaliate against local prosecutors for pursuing policies that disagree with, Habig said. This is part of a national trend that we're seeing of predominantly white, often gerrymandered state legislatures targeting prosecutors, often Black prosecutors, and often prosecutors elected in cities and counties with larger Black and brown population. So the partisan and racial nature of this retaliation, I think, is something that is really important to highlight. The remarks of Dixon, the state senator, were the first shot across the bow, Habig said. The drumbeat is starting. Another Republican state lawmaker called last week for a special legislative session to investigate Willis, and others are drafting a statement to condemn her for indicting Trump, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution reported. Dixon and Kemp did not respond to request for comment. Beyond the focus of Willis for indicting Trump, Habig said, the law is already having a pernicious effect on prosecutors across the state. There have already been changes in how DAs talk about their priorities and the kinds of cases that they think are most important. Changes in traction to build criminal justice reform efforts in the state. She said exactly what I said, right? They don't want these reforms. Georgia attorneys said they were afraid to discuss basic parts of their work for fear of targeting for removal under the law. I am concerned that some of my policies and approaches could be interpreted as a stated policy that could give rise to complaint, investigation, and discipline. DeKalb County District Attorney Sherry Boston wrote in an affidavit supporting the motion for a preliminary injunction. Right. So Georgia attorneys are afraid to do their job. They're afraid to discuss parts of their job because they don't want to They don't want to go against the grain. They don't want to be investigated, have complaints filed against them, get disciplined. Crazy. Boston said her comment to reforms like higher evidentiary standards and pretrial diversion guidelines could all put a target on her back. Right, diversion standards. Right, so somebody gets arrested for dealing drugs or drunk driving or whatever. That they have diversionary programs, right, to keep them out of the criminal justice system, to keep them out of incarceration, keep them out of the penal system, and divert them to drug rehab, alcohol rehab, other different types of programs that would keep the state finances down. But no, these people want to throw people in jail. In another affidavit, the director of public policy and communications at the Savannah nonprofit Deep State said the organization had been working with local prosecutors to implement reforms, but after the passage of the law, the prosecutors balked. Deep Center's Coco Guthrie Pappy said her organization had worked with Chatham County District Attorney Shelina Cook Jones to develop plans to address the backlog of people awaiting trial and sentencing in the county jail. Started a pre-arrest diversion program and alleviate certain court fines and fees. Jones' office embraced those efforts at first, but soon became more reluctant, Guthrie Pappy said. Guthrie Pappy said her organization, and Pappy is spelled P-A-P-Y, said her organization started to see changes as the bill started moving through the legislature. It's one of those things that never spoken out loud, but you can see people's behavior start to change because people get scared. And fear is an incredibly powerful emotion, she said. It was very clear to us and to all the work that we had been trying to push through the DA's office was going to come to a halt. Jones did not immediately respond for a request for comment. Before the push for the new law, some prosecutors in Georgia, in response to calls for local communities, began to narrow their focus on the most dire crimes, she said, Guthrie Pappy said. she pointed to the killing of Ahmaud Arbery in 2020 as a catalyst for the election of more reformed-minded DAs. But the new law put those prosecutors in a bind. At the end of the day, she said, what it has really done is disrupted the legacy of bipartisan reform that has happened in Georgia, which is really, really hard to get to. So this is what she said, and so I'm going to read something from her in a little bit here. So this is what's going on. The will of the people elect these individuals. Higher ups, for various reasons can go from they just want more people locked up. Maybe they have an invested interest in private prisons. Maybe they just want more people in the carceral state, right? Because they built these prisons, they built these systems, and they want people to occupy them. They want bodies in beds, as it were, right? They want the butts in bunks, right? So we got to put them in there. So these people were trying to keep people out of the justice system and only prosecute the most heinous of crimes, the most serious of crimes. That's what they're trying to do. But this particular woman right here, she scratched the wrong itch here and went after Donald Trump. They're still Republican darling, and now she's in their crosshairs. Interesting story. So here's another story continuing. This guy looks like Kanye West here. So 17 states have now tried to pass bills that strip powers from reform-minded prosecutors. In recent years, just under 40 bills have been introduced in various states' legislatures that give local prosecutors power to state levels. In recent years, a movement to elect reform-minded prosecutors across the country has won hard-fought victories across a handful of large cities. Now a growing backlash is taking a new form. At least 9 bills introduced this year across 5 states would strip power from democratically elected prosecutors. In many of the cases, more conservative legislatures are taking power away from local prosecutors, destroying the liberal and democratic cities and putting them in the hands of Republicans holding statewide offices. So these people get elected in office and they just want to take your power from them. This, what type of power grab is this? Since the mid-2010s, dozens of cities across the country have elected prosecutors who enacted criminal justice reform. Some have faced recall battles, and others attempt to remove them from office. While at least one of the recall bids has succeeded, the efforts have largely failed. I wonder which ones have succeeded. Facing losses at the ballot box, Republicans and police unions pushing a return to tough on crime policies are turning instead to state legislatures to advance their aim. Those committed to ensuring that only poor people get prosecuted and that police officers who cause harm go free are lashing out, trying to undermine the will of the voters by removing people who won't go along with the old, out-of-touch criminal legal system, said Jessica Brand, a progressive strategist who advises reformist prosecutors around the country. This is a nationwide assault on democracy. I completely agree with that statement. It is an assault on democracy. In January, the Local Solutions Support Center and the Public Rights Project, a nonprofit that advocates for civil rights and economic and environmental justice, released a report tallying bills introduced in legislative sessions between 2017 and 2022. The authors found that nearly 30 bills had been introduced in 16 states during that period. 30 bills in 16 states. Although only 5 preemptive laws have passed, the report said. This new trend is part of a larger movement by reactionary states to use preemption to thwart criminal justice reform and undermine the will of local constituents calling for this change. With at least 9 additional bills have been introduced this year, 2023, including one in a new state, Mississippi. Totals rose to 37 bills in 17 states. The federal system provides no legal protection for cities against state lawmakers who want to step in and stop certain policy, leaving cities with progressive leanings at the mercy of conservative state officials, right? So the feds can't do anything about this. In some cases, the power to recall an elected official serves a purpose. For instance, in North Carolina, which does not have a statute for recalling an elected official, an elected sheriff was indicted for attempted murder and refused to step down. But recalls can also be easily exploited for political purposes. In Florida, Republican Governor Ron DeSantis removed an elected attorney, Andrew Warren, because he pledged not to prosecute women who sought abortions. This week, DeSantis moved to suspend another prosecutor over his handling of a criminal case. Wow. Likewise, critics say that state legislatures are abusing their statutory authority by trying to rip power away from prosecutors. Reformist prosecutors have come to office and undertaken policy changes like reducing or ending cash bail, declining to charge people in nonviolent drug possession cases, holding police accountable for misconduct, and addressing wrongful convictions. Conservative politicians, however, have painted these reformers as harbingers of lawlessness, blaming them for a spike in homicides, although that spike has also impacted areas with traditional tough on crime prosecutors. A new rash of legislative efforts to strip prosecutors of their power has sometimes come before reforms are even enacted. The district attorney in Polk County, Iowa, has been on the job for 8 weeks, and state lawmakers are already trying to give her powers to the attorney general. All of these laws seem to be in direct response to policy preferences before anything has even happened, said John Pfaff, a scholar of criminal justice at Reform University School of Law. This is clearly not a response to a failure of policy on the ground. This is a direct rebuke to voters saying what they want. Right. Assault on democracy, direct rebuke to the voters. Republican lawmakers in Texas have introduced 4 bills that would prohibit prosecutors from declining to charge certain offenses or refusing to seek the death penalty in capital cases, and would allow the attorney general to find and seek removal of prosecutors who decline to pursue certain charges. One of the bills would prohibit elected prosecutors from adapting policies to limit criminal enforcement of laws related to voting in elections, laws that have become politicized following former President Donald Trump's false claims of mass election fraud. Another Texas bill would establish a council to monitor prosecutors and granted the power to petition for prosecutors' removal for incompetency and misconduct. The bills would apply to elected prosecutors across the state. Georgia lawmakers have introduced 2 bills to take away power from prosecutors. One would make it easier to recall an elected prosecutor. Another would prohibit prosecutors from using blanket policy guidelines, like declining to charge for drug possession or ending cash bail for nonviolent offenses. Another purpose and oversight commission for elected prosecutors is appointed by the governor and grants the power to discipline, remove, and force elected prosecutors and solicitor generals to retire. This goes on and on. I'm not going to read the rest of this here. But this is really, really interesting. What's going on here, right? It goes on a little bit more about Iowa, a little bit about Missouri. So we talk about Texas, Iowa, Missouri. What other states? Can I kind of briefly go over here? So this is what's going on in these different states. Yeah, Iowa, Missouri, and so it's just, this is a crazy, crazy assault. Let's see, what else do I got here? I don't know what that is. So that's from the Intercept. So I did want to read this affidavit here. Now, remember we talked about Guthrie Pappy. Her name is Elizabeth Guthrie Pappy, and this is the reform efforts, and this is why. And this is going to tie into another video that I want to talk about here. Let's see. So she talks about, this is her affidavit, right? Now, this is something that she wrote to in support of, to negate the efforts made by the governor and his lackeys there in the state of Georgia, right? So she wrote this affidavit in support of the policies of Fannie Willis and others who are reform-minded, right? So she gives her opening statement there, right? I originally received my training as restorative justice practitioner at the Internal Institute for Restorative Practices, and I've been a Highlander Education Center Greensboro Justice Fellow, a PEN Prison Writing Fellow, a People for the American Ways Frontline Leader Fellow, and most recently Take a Breath Fellow at the Action Lab. These are all different non-government organizations, NGOs that are trying to do something about police reform. I don't really know much about them. Since 2019, I was served as Director of Public Policy Commissions of the DEEP Center. The DEEP Center is a nonprofit organization based in Savannah, which serves nearly 1,000 youth and young adults annually through our multi-tier programs fostering youth voice, social agency, and system change. Part of my work at DEEP, I develop an organization's public policy and advocacy positions on education and criminal justice reform. In addition, I serve as a registered lobbyist for the DEEP Center. Deep Center's mission is to empower Savannah's young people to thrive as learners, community leaders, and agents of change. This is all the stuff that she does. I want to get to where. Okay, very early. Let's see. For many years before that, our organization focused on direct services for young people. As we began to work in the juvenile court program, more and more we noticed the ways in which the local justice system impacted youth both directly and through their families. We came to recognize how much of an obstacle the carceral system was for those who we serve, and we decided to better support the needs of our community by including more. I lost my space here. We decided to support the needs of our community by including more advocacy for systems change and criminal justice reform into our work. Very early in that process, we realized the central role that district attorney play in supporting and implementing reforms. Prior to 2021, DEEP had a limited relationship with local prosecutors. When Chatham County District Attorney Shalina Cook Jones was elected, DEEP began to engage in a partnership with her administration. Both during that campaign and after her election, District Attorney Jones made many statements that demonstrated her commitment to criminal justice reform. Those public and private statements show us that her approach to justice is aligned in at least some important ways with the mission of the DEEP Center, right? So she's making some changes, right? At the beginning, District Jones' tenure, DEEP identified 4 areas of potential partnership. The bail and bond reform, right? Remember those cash bails and all that, right? Keeping people locked up. The county jails backlog, right? Pre-arrest diversion and court fees and fines. Initially, DEEP Center received a good amount of receptivity to these ideas and from District Jones' office, right? District Attorney Jones' office, right? So she's listening, right? Okay, like yeah, we got a serious backlog. Maybe it isn't right if someone doesn't have $200, they got to sit in prison, until they get out, right? And maybe we should invest in some pre-arrest. I don't know, pre-arrest. I'm not sure that's right, but anyway, maybe pre-trial diversionary, pre-arrest. How can you anyway? However, as a result of SB 2992, as a result of SB 92, District Attorney Jones has backed away from many of these reforms and has expressed increasing reluctance to take any positions that might be perceived as more lenient or less aggressive about charges or sentencing. As an example, in the summer of 2021, we began to work on the large jail backlog in Chatham County. At the time, roughly 71 people were in jail, still awaiting a trial or sentencing at their lengthy detention, right? Because we have a right to speedy trial in this country, right? The backlog was the result of delays in the court system due to COVID-19 and a lack of capacity in the district attorney's office to handle the extra pending cases that had not been prosecuted, right? We got not enough secretaries, not enough attorneys, not enough, right? So, and we got this backlog due to COVID-19. As of July 2021, most who were part of this backlog had waited at least a year, and some had waited up to 3 years. 3 years sitting in prison for sentencing. It was estimated the cost of incarceration for these individuals totaled $6.76 million to the taxpayers. The DEEP Center advocated for 2 reforms to address the backlog. One, the use of American Rescue Plan, ARPA, funding to hire more ADAs by the county, and the establishment of a rapid trial docket, which would rely on ADA discretion to dispose of cases more quickly and leniently. All right, take a look at these cases, see if we can get these people up out of here. And you think that people who are all about jobs would like that. Let's get some more of these lawyers hired and hire some more lawyers. But oh no. Although the funds were secured to hire more staff, right? Also, they did do that. They did hire that. The rapid trial dockets did not come to fruition. Surprise, surprise. So they got more people to work, but they didn't do the get them out of jail quickly card. In the summer 2022, we began to work with District Attorney Jones' office to restart a pre-arrest diversion program. Not sure that word is right, pre-arrest, but that's what she wrote. Under the contours of the program Deep Center proposed, anyone cited or charged on a first offense or quality of life offense, such as disorderly conduct or vagrancy, right, would be diverted into programming, the completion of which would wipe the charge from their record. Such diversion programs are proved to be very successful in other jurisdictions. They minimize involvement with the criminal and legal system, and they ensure fewer people suffer collateral consequences, right? Because you get these things on your record, right? Stops you from getting into certain colleges. You can't get certain certifications. Can't go to maybe you can't become a truck driver. You can't become a barber. All this silly stuff that comes from being arrested. District Attorney Jones originally pledged support for this program and attended early meetings to discuss how we might move forward. We received support from police departments in Chatham. So even the cops were involved in this. We identified early on the need to locate funds for this program to compensate the court clerk who would support each docket. At one point, the district attorney's office informed us that they had received a grant that could potentially cover this cost. Despite the initial support and apparent funding, so they got the support from the police, from the district attorney's office, and they even secured the funding. The diversion program has stalled. An additional potential project with the district attorney Jones' office, we focus on court fines and fees. We encourage District Attorney Jones' office to wipe away any district discretionary fine or fee that would negatively impact an individual's financial well-being. Right? You got to pay a $500 fine, but you don't have the money for it. Right? Why did we do this? Following the introduction of SB 92, District Attorney Jones' office expressed reluctance to work on this project. In light of the changed circumstances, we asked the District Attorney Jones' office to work on a modified project. We asked to focus on the creation of a form assessing financial status of the defendant. The form is meant to gauge the impact of a fine or fee and be used to inform decisions by the DA. And this goes on and on. So this just shows that, she's writing this letter to show that, you're creating backlogs, you're hurting individuals financially, you're hurting them in the long term by these criminal and prison records that they're going to get. And I guarantee you that there is some there. I don't know if Georgia has private prisons, but this is problematic on those lines. So that's from there. So everybody's everyone is not involved. Everyone is not on board. Everyone is not in favor of police, criminal justice, and prosecutorial reforms. Understand that, right? So even when the voters vote people in, they are overturned by the will of these elected officials. So I want to finish this off because I listened to something. I follow these brothers. I don't know. This is reformist DA Sewell. Yeah, I signed this already. I don't know why this is coming up. Right. So there's another article by The Interceptor. Reformist DA sue Georgia over law to remove elected official prosecutors, including one probing Donald Trump. So there is a lawsuit going on about this whole situation that's going on down here in Florida. Remember, there's 17 other states and 37 other bills, right? So they're going to try to keep doing it, right? So let's go to YouTube here. I wanted to discuss a show that I watched last night, and so these are brothers who, I'm not going to play the video here, but you can see the title of this video from the bottom here. It says, "How Black Men Fare Under White Collar Black Women," featuring Terrain Walker by Dr. T. Hassan Johnson. I love these brothers. This is in no way a critique of him or the other panel members that he had on, Dr. Ronald Neal, a couple of other PhDs. Smart brothers, really trying to do something in advocacy of Black men. And so part of the what they played on here, maybe I can fast forward to it. Actually, I'm going to play a video that they played. So this is a video that they played, and this was a state defendant, a state defender, right? A public defender. We don't know where she's working at, but but she takes a really, really surprising aspect to it. Let me just give you a little bit more background to this. So these brothers, right, as you can tell by the name of the title here, right, how do black men fare under white collar black women, right? So the point is that when black women, so-called, move up in the economic food chain, socioeconomic food chain, become lawyers, doctors, judges, politically, astute, politically powerful people, mayors, state senators, whatever it is, white collar, becoming CEOs of companies, whatever it is that's really, really high powered, that they tend to disfavor African American males. Now, I'm not saying whether that's true or not. We obviously have to do a deep dive into whether their statements are true. But they do give, and the brothers who are on the panel do give some of their anecdotal evidence. And I don't know whether it's true or not. I'm not making a prediction. I'm not making a pronouncement, on my decision as to whether this is true or not. But I do think it's an interesting conversation. It certainly was an interesting conversation that they had. And as proof of this, here is the video that they played. And I hope, let me just, so again, this is going to be a defense attorney.
Pro-black if you hate black men. And I said, I need to get to know that brother right there. And so you are still at it on Twitter. And I wanted to play the video that spawned all of this. And then I want to get you to kind of talk about what you saw in it, why you wanted to respond to it, so on and so forth. So let me go ahead and put it up for y'all to check out. Here we go.
Violence. Let me see. I'm going with a male user.
So this is a panel. Just let me interrupt it here. So this is a panel of individuals, and this woman who is a state public defender is going to look at a number of different individuals, right? So she's got just from what I can see right here. I'm saying this for the audio audience, right? So what's going on right here is you have a white lady. You have, I don't know if that guy's a mixed African American male, skinny, thin, or if he's Hispanic. And there's another white male. Somebody's standing next to them with a suit on, right? So she has to pick which one. She, being the state's public defender, she's acting in her own capacity. She's not working for any state, but she's using her knowledge and what she thinks is fits the profile of a domestic abuser. Right, physical domestic abuser, domestic physical assault abuser, right? So this is what she's saying. So she's trying to pick them out. She's looking at all these different individuals, and she wants to know, who's picking them out. Now, this is in response, again, to so this is a TV show. Let me just say that. This is, I think, TV show, internet show, something. And she's trying to pick out these individuals who she believes is the domestic abuser, right? Who's the domestic abuser amongst these people? White male, I don't know if that's a Latino male or mixed individual who's got some kind of, brown skin. Maybe he's mixed. Maybe he's a Latino. Maybe he's Middle Eastern. I'm not exactly sure. Then there's a white male, white blonde female, and a couple of other people. So here's what she's going to pick.
Here we go.
What makes me look like the type of person that...
So she picked a dark-skinned or darker-skinned individual. She believes that he is the domestic abuser. And here he's asking the question here, what makes you decide to pick me?
Would be involved in domestic violence.
All of the TV shows that I watch, you look like
all the TV shows. Well, let me just play it through so you can hear it, right?
a male.
I look like a male?
You,
okay.
a man of color.
When you see me as
For DV!
the person of color, is there a specific race that you might see?
I do.
Okay.
I
What is
see
that?
you as a black male.
He's South Asian.
Interesting.
Am I right about you're not a black male. You fit the picture you present as what they show of pimps, hustlers, TV.
They, as in who?
On the main media.
So as a defense attorney, do you think that like the way you approach your clients might be through the lens of like what you might see in the media? Do you think that might be an issue?
Okay, never mind. I don't want you for the domestic violence. I don't think you're the person.
That was horrendous. That was horrendous. This was a woman who is a state's public defender defending individuals. She picks out a guy from the audience who says, "You look like a man who is involved in domestic violence." He asked, what makes you say that? Well, because you fit the profile as a man and as a black man. You present as a black man. You look like a gangster. There's nothing about this dude looks like a gangster. His pants are pulled all the way up. He's got on skinny jeans with some nice boots. What I don't know what she's talking about. But this is the point. This is the point of what T. Hassan Johnson and Taurine Walker and the other guests on the particular panel were talking about is why you walk into a courtroom and this is what you see. Everyone is not in on this, right? So let me just go back here and rewind it here. So we can get the whole context. Once again, I'll let it run through again so you can hear it again from top to bottom without me stopping to interrupt it.
Me look like the type.
No.
I don't want you guys to.
I'm going with a male user.
Here we go.
Damn. What makes me look like the type of person that would be involved in domestic violence?
All of the TV shows that I watch. You look like a male.
I look like a male?
You,
Okay.
a man of color.
When you see me as
For DV!
the person of color, is there a specific race that you might see?
I do.
Okay.
I
What is
see
that?
you as a black male.
He's South Asian.
Interesting.
Am I right about you're not a black male. You fit the picture you present as what they show of pimps, hustlers on TV.
They, as in who?
On the main media.
So as a defense attorney, do you think that like the way you approach your clients might be through the lens of like what you might see in the media? Do you think that might be an issue?
Okay, never mind. I don't want.
From what I understand, they're going to look into this woman and attempt to get her fired, disbarred, or something along those lines. And I don't always call for that, this whole cancel culture, but she does not need to be supporting people who do this. She said that he looked like a pimp hustler. Nothing about this man says pimp or hustler. She gets her information from the TV. She has not been able to separate reality. She needs a class in media relations, the history of media relations. That was horrible, and that was horrible. So what had to do with the topic that I'm talking about here? So the topic that I'm talking about here is that the reason that to Tia San's point, and I'm not. Well, let me just say it. The reason that I think that if there is any truth to the way that African American females or anyone else is reluctant to help look out for, participate in programs to help Black males is because of the risk that they would be fired, right? That's the risk that they would run into. This is the risk that they would run into, and we see that in what's going on in these different places, right? So we've got these prosecutors going around here trying to make changes, as we saw from this Guthrie Pappy situation down in Savannah. We trying to make changes, reaching out to the district attorney's office, reaching out to the police officers. Those two entities are on board with trying to alleviate the system and alleviate the problems that are going on. And we got other individuals going above their heads, trying to get them complaints against them, get them investigated, and get them removed from office or force them into retirement. So if it's true, I would submit that if it is true that there are certain individuals who are in positions of power who are refusing to be helpful to, in particular, Black males, this is why. And so, first thing I would say about this is if you're in this particular position, stop getting your information from media. Take a history of media relations class. Look at how the media has intentionally shaped your view of the world. Understand that it's going on and fight against it and resist it. Right? This woman, who is an attorney and a state public attorney, is so enamored with and so encumbered by and so engulfed in media that she thinks that every single black male is pimps and hustlers and therefore involved in domestic violence. What type of chance do you have? And this is an educated person who should know all this, who should have taken implicit bias training, who should have taken diversity, equity, and inclusion training, who should have taken cultural competency. And she herself is a woman of color. And so she has to fight against her own prejudices and biases and stop watching so much TV where she thinks that every single black person is a pimp and hustler and involved in and could possibly be involved in criminal justice. And not to mention that you are having the presumption of innocence until proven guilty, and you're the defendant. You're the defending attorney. Like I said, I think that I've heard that they are looking and trying to find out who this lady is and where she works, and going to file for her to be suspended, barred, whatever. And I'm not always in support of that, but this is the problem. So let me. I don't want to digress here. I thought they put on a really good show, and there's other stories that they put on this particular show. So my point is this is about sticking together. It's about understanding criminal justice reform in the obstacles it takes to get here. Not only the political obstacles, but when people who are maybe on board and should be on board don't seem to be on board. This is why. Because they're facing pressure from being fired. They're facing pressure from being going forward, forcing their retirement, and your reputation is at stake. So this is, and as much as I would hate to admit it, I actually have a little bit of sympathy for that woman that we discussed, Jackie. What's her name there? Jackie. I probably got Jackie Jeffries or Jackie Johnson, the woman there in the Abed Arbery case, right? Because she probably has was a victim of this, right? Can't make these reforms, got to clear things up, handling things wrong along those lines. So I'll end it right there. Tell me what your thoughts and your opinions are. Am I right about this? Are we wrong about this? How do we go about getting prison reform? How do we go about getting criminal justice reform? Is this Fannie Willis in the crosshairs of the Republican Party, who is not doing her will? What's your thoughts and your opinions about all this? And if she does relent to go back and start locking up more black men, is it her fault? Would it be her fault, or would it be the fault of a system that is putting pressure on her neck? Let me know your thoughts and your opinions. Much love and peace, everyone.